Welcome to the Buck Stops here, Season 1, Episode 4 of the Hall of Fame Show. And today it's a little bit bittersweet. We're going to be talking about the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the upcoming possibilities for that respective Hall of 2020. And that's a good part. The sad part is a legend has passed away. And we're going to dedicate the show to the memory of Kobe Bryant. Kobe passed away just a few days ago as a result of a helicopter crash, himself and his daughter and 7 others. He is a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, which will happen this year. There's no doubt of that. And it's tough. It's kind of tough doing the show, knowing what Kobe meant. And for myself personally, this is a passing that hit me much harder than I ever would have thought. I did not realize how much Kobe Bryant meant to me until he was gone. And much as I will discuss a little bit later with Evan, same as when David Bowie passed away. I did not realize how much he meant to me as a fan of his music and Kobe as a player until he's gone. And just reminds us, love the people who matter to you and tell them, because you're not going to have another chance. With that said, here's Evan in Season 1, Episode 4 of the Hall of Fame Show. Evan, how you doing?
Doing pretty well. I'm basking in the glory that is Danny Ainge officially becoming a real GM since Jason Tatum became his first ever drafted player with the Celtics to make the All-Star team today.
Actually, what do you think of the All-Star picks? I was really upset that Mr. Booker was not part of that.
Yeah, Devin Booker seems like the obvious person left off. Somebody is going to probably beg out, probably Chris Paul, and Booker will be put on. John Morant is also somebody, although he's a rookie, I understand it. You kind of have to wait for it. Morant also is an interesting one. Bradley Beal
yes.
in Washington. As a Celtics fan, I feel like that Tatum hasn't been as good as Brown this year overall. So he's a little bit of a thing, but they're not going to put 3 Celtics on that team. So, yeah, it was there's always going to be some things. I think the rules are coming up that are weirder for the game. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. So they get a bit of a, what is it? I think they haven't really set a time frame, but or no, it's not so much a time frame. Each quarter is going to have like basically the first to get to a certain amount of points.
No, it's each quarter. Each quarter is going to be played normally, but it's going to basically start at 0, and whoever wins the quarter goes for a charity. It's when they get to the fourth quarter.
All right. Yes.
At that point, it's just because of Kobe Bryant's number. Whichever team, it's going to be an untimed quarter, and whoever gets the 24 points first is going to win.
Oh, okay. So that's only for the fourth quarter, or is that for?
That's only for the fourth quarter.
Okay. So all right. So I just glanced over that.
Yeah, but whoever wins each 3 quarters. Each of the 3 quarters, each team is going to be playing for a Chicago-based charity based on Giannis and LeBron's choosing.
Oh, okay.
And so whoever wins each quarter, that charity is going to get the money. So,
yeah, I have no problem with them doing it a little differently. I mean, everything's sort of always a big, giant shootout with no defense. So, you know what? Just embrace it. I got no problem with that. Why not?
Yeah, and I kind of hope one of the things that I can't remember what writer came up with it, but said, "Hey, have all the one team wear 24 and all the other team wear 8."
That's a great idea.
Which I thought would be, pretty good tribute. Obviously, we haven't brought it up yet, but we've talked around it with Kobe crazily passing away this week. So
yeah. And I think we'll get a little bit more into that because I think what we intended to start off with is the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which will be announced the day before the Super Bowl this Saturday night. The new 5 people, and this is a first. We've been sort of debating stuff like this for years. I don't think we've ever had the exact same picks as each other.
No, and we do this completely independently, like literally countries apart. We've never been in the same country when we've been doing these picks.
Yes, countries apart, time zones apart, everything apart, really. I haven't even met you yet.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard to coordinate with somebody you've never been in the same room as.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's. I think we agreed on. Should we just go through it anyway?
Absolutely. Yeah, so let's run down the finalists that we have, and we can just pretty much do some quick thoughts. I won't do this in alphabetical order, just in the little order that I'm just looking at right now. Troy Polamalu, I know we both say is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think they've been working on that bust because of the hair probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, although there was one Pittsburgh columnist who was trying to stir up some dirt, I think, to get some clicks, that he'd been talking to Hall of Fame voters and it didn't feel like Polamalu was a lock. And basically all of Pittsburgh Twitter was like, just be quiet, sir. So yeah, I think we're all pretty much in agreement that Polamalu's getting in.
And he should. And he absolutely should.
Yeah.
Edgerrin James, running back. And we both said it, probably not this year.
A lot of people disagree with us online. There are a lot of people who are picking James to get in this year. I just feel that I think there are 4 spots taken and the 5th one's up for grab. I think James has a shot at it, but
He could.
I just feel that it's more likely to go to another defensive player than offensive player in this. They're going to put in an offensive lineman. It's going to be Polamalu, an offensive lineman, a wide receiver, and 2 people. But it's possible James gets one. I just feel there's another player who edges him out. So.
Right. Yeah, and I think we're thinking of the exact same player.
I'm sorry, and that was not meant. Sorry, that was not meant to be a pun with edging him out. Sorry, continue.
Usually, I'm really up on that, and I'm the one coming up with all the corny material.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I said it and then felt bad.
Well,
Go ahead.
the gauntlet's been set, so I'm gonna try to rise to the occasion here. Zach Thomas, the one I'm most happy that he's finally a finalist. Probably not getting in, but stranger things have happened. It could. I don't see it, but
I remember. I don't know if you remember a few years ago. Ricky Jackson popped up out of nowhere. It had been taking a long time for him to get on, and then he was on for the first time and in.
Right.
So it's not unprecedented, even at his position, for that to happen. But I just feel like Thomas is there. I think Thomas will be in the next 2 or 3 years. I just don't think the first year is going to be the one that gets him in.
Right. Bryant Young was my biggest surprise to even make it this far. I don't see him getting in. I'm happy he's nominated, but I don't see him going any further than this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm happy he's nominated as well. I also don't see. I feel like they used to do when they made these announcements. They don't anymore. Back before they brought the people up on stage, they used to have the guy come out. I can't remember his name. And he'd be like, here, after the first cut, here were the 10 remaining. After the second cut, here are the 5 remaining, and here's our class. They don't do that anymore. But if they did that, I don't expect that Bryant Young would go from the 15 to the 10.
No, that would be a major shock. And I agree with you. It's not going to happen. The next guy is the guy I think you and I both have as the 5th. Richard Seymour, someone you know much better than I, being a Patriots fan.
Yeah, and Seymour is first team, all 2000s team. I think that he and Edgerrin James are probably actually going for that 5th spot. I give the edge to Seymour, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm right. But yeah, I feel like there's been quite a bit of groundswell behind Seymour when Ty Law got in last year, and it kind of feels like that's still going this year. But once you get in that room, and depending on who's making what vote and whose favorites get knocked out in what round, it may make a difference. So,
yeah, I think Seymour. I've got, I don't know, just my gut feeling, which is the same gut feeling as saying John Lynch is entering chic territory.
Yeah, John Lynch would be the sentimental favorite at this point to get on, just because he's been on so many times. If not for Steve Atwater.
Exactly. Yes.
Because Atwater's just waited. I think he's got two or three more years of eligibility. And Broncos fans have probably rightly pissed and moaned a ton about Gradishar not being getting in with the seniors. And so it wouldn't surprise me if Atwater is sort of a beneficiary of Gradishar not getting in.
Very, very well possible. And if John Lynch doesn't get in, there's I'd say a 50-50 shot. He's got another Super Bowl ring to keep him to sort of console him.
Yeah, that'd be a terrible feeling, huh?
Oh,
sorry,
yeah, exactly.
I didn't get into the Hall of Fame. I guess I'll have to cry into my my Super Bowl ring. That'd be pretty terrible.
Yeah, I just sort of like built a team out of nothing. So yeah, and that will be fantastic for Lynch. Leroy Butler, I don't see him getting in, and but it was massive for him to make this threshold.
Yeah, it was interesting. I saw something today, and I double-checked it, and it's correct. But of the 70s, 80s, and 90s all-decade teams, there are 66 skill position players. I'm not counting kickers and specialists and stuff like that. 63 of them are in. Can you name the only 3 who aren't?
I cannot. Well, I can name one.
What?
I'm guessing I can name one.
Which is?
Butler.
Leroy Butler, yeah. Leroy Butler. The other 2 are Drew Pearson, who appeared for a ballot on the first time this last year, or earlier this month, and Randy Groucho. That's it. That's everybody. So it's time Butler's going to be here. I just feel there are too many defensive backs for him being on for the first time to get through this time. Yeah,
and I think he knows that. And just again, reaching this stage is very big for him. He's going to get in eventually. There's a lot of momentum behind him. He's doing everything correct in terms of social media, and whether that shouldn't matter, but we all know it does. Let's ask Kurt, Schilling, Kurt.
Yes.
So
yeah. Well, also don't steal $70 million from a state. So,
there's that too.
But that's the thing too, though, about the Pro Football Fame. Now there are some exceptions, but I go through about closing classes and everything like that. But generally, once you're on one of these ballots, the NFL does a pretty good job of eventually getting you in.
Yeah, I agree.
I said, prior to the senior class thing, they're coming into this year. There have been 40 people who had appeared on the ballot and hadn't gotten in the whole history, and that included 10 people left over from last year. So that means outside of the people who were on the ballot last year, only 30 people have ever been nominated, not eventually gotten in. That's pretty good at making sure they have the right people on the ballot and also eventually getting everybody in. So they do a pretty good job of it. Him getting there is a good sign, particularly since he's got a few more years to go through. So we're just in a glut of defensive backs right now. So they have to clear some through. They got 3 through last year, which is great. I think they're going to get 2 through again this year, and that will help him out a little bit.
Which is a perfect segue for sort of the glut of wide receivers, which is starting to build up again. Yeah. Reggie Wayne, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce. You and I have both picked Isaac Bruce as the one who's going to get through. Wayne possibly could take that spot. My personal thing that I was most happy about is that Torrey Holt finally made that threshold. Because for me, Bruce and Holt, there's a similar argument for both of them. I'm not quite positive how Bruce sort of ascended over Holt on this.
Yeah, I'm not positive on it either, but he did. And as several voters have said, when a tie goes to the person who's been waiting longer, when it comes to people in that room, if there are people who are similar, this is Wayne's first year, it's Holt's first year, although he's been eligible for a while, and Bruce's 4th time on the ballot. So they're more likely to clear Bruce up, but they're going to have to do it because Megatron's coming. And a few others are coming down the line. They're going to have to start looking at it. And then other people who are just on the outside looking in, like Heinz Ward, are people who are there eventually going to want to consider. They're going to have to clear some of these other folks out. So one of these wide receivers is getting in. We both think it's Bruce. It wouldn't surprise me if it was Holt. It wouldn't surprise me if it was Wade, although it would feel a little weird for Wayne to get in before Edgerrin James. I almost feel like Edgerrin James being in the ballot hurts Wayne. Just because they're different generations of the same team. And
Holt could hurt Bruce. Holt could hurt Bruce, although I kind of think, though, that the school of thought here is that it's actually going to help Bruce more. Because if Holt sort of reaches that threshold, do they really want to keep the same 2 guys for next year?
Right. Yeah, it's weird. Like, Holt helps Bruce, but Wayne may help James. Just because it feels like there's another player on the same team. I feel like Wade helps James more than Holt helps Bruce, though, maybe. Just because of the different generations thing coming on.
Right.
But they need to get both Holt and Bruce in here at some point pretty soon.
Sam Mills, also on the ballot. I don't see him getting through. As a Saints fan, I'm super happy he's made it to this round. Having said that, if I'm in that room, I wouldn't put him as the number 5 guy.
No.
Yeah.
Hey, Mills is another guy who I think is that 15 to 10 cut based off of who we have here. I mean, Mills' direct competition is Zach Thomas, and I feel Thomas's numbers are just better.
Right, and they are, and Thomas. Yeah. If they're going to take one linebacker, it should be Zach over Sam Mills. Having said that, personally, super happy that Mills is getting some respect here. We've got three offensive linemen. We both think the same one's getting in. Baselli, Faneca, Hutchinson. You and I both have Faneca.
Yeah, although there is a groundswell of support for Baselli out there. Like, there seems to be a lot of people on Baselli. My problem with Baselli is just the shortness of his career in terms of his candidacy, not the quality of his play. All three of those guys are going to get in at some point. I just feel with the list as we have them now, both Hutchinson and Faneca have longer careers with more accolades than Baselli, even though Baselli was so dominant in relative obscurity in Jacksonville. And we're doing a coin flip here. We both thought Faneca was getting in last year and Mawai got in.
Yes.
So just with Mawai gone, it just feels like Faneca's next to me.
I thought Faneca should have been at least 3 years ago. But
yeah.
You know, I think he will.
Yeah,
since we're sort of like doing the same thing, and I'm already down 4 beers when we eventually meet, probably in Chicago, because I think that's more likely than you coming down here.
At least with the little kids, it's going to be a little hard, but yeah.
Okay, so we've got to come up with something. So give me, I'll say it first. I'll give you my number 6 guy.
Okay.
And so that'll sort of be the wager. And since I always lose, it's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to say Baselli.
All right. So what you're saying is we're keeping the same 5, but the person who the tiebreaker here is if someone from our 5 is getting in, Baselli's your person for the tiebreaker?
Yeah. Basically, if Baselli gets in, you can pick the rest of the field unless you were going to pick Baselli.
No, I'm not going to pick Baselli.
Okay.
I'll do the same thing. I was going to pick, I think Edger James is the 6th spot.
Okay. So that's sort of the wager.
Sounds good. And if we both wrong, or we both were right or both wrong, then Ty goes to...
Well, Ty goes the guy who's kicking my ass in this. It's not me. God damn it. It's sort of like when I do all this stuff with Vinny. I said, like, but God damn it, you jinxed my team by saying the Saints were going to the Super Bowl. What did he have? Saints Ravens. You might know everything about the Pro Football Hall of Fame, my friend, but Jesus Christ, when you're doing some pro picks. My God.
Yeah, the Ravens just looked really, really rusty. I had the Ravens going to the Super Bowl as well. Mm-hmm. I had a Ravens 49ers repeat Super Bowl.
I did too.
Coming in, which I know is boring because it's the 1 seats, but I just thought the Green Bay was a week 2, and San Francisco was significantly better. And then I just didn't think the Ravens would ever have to go on the road, which they didn't. But I was expecting Tennessee to have a running back do something which had never been done in NFL history before. 3 consecutive games of over 200 yards or whatever it was. They just bulldozed the Patriots and the Ravens, and here are the Chiefs. So.
Yeah, and the Casa de Buck household, with my wife being a Patriots fan, we were sort of hoping for that Saints-Patriots Super Bowl.
Yeah, it would have been great to have Brady and Breeze at one point.
Actually, did you see that? That was an Instagram or Twitter thing from Breeze where it's looking like he's either retiring or returning. Or not Breeze, sorry, Brady.
Brady, yeah. Well, the interesting thing about that photo, because you can't tell whether he's going in or out, but that's the visitor's entryway at Gillette. That's not the home team's entryway. It's a visitor's one.
So you think that means he's going to San Diego?
I think that has nothing to do with anything, and maybe
San
Diego that we just don't know about.
Yeah, San Diego, nice. Los Angeles. So, I can't call them. Well, I can't even call them the Los Angeles Chargers.
Did you go and listen to the San Diego Superchargers song?
I did.
Yeah. How fantastic is that?
It's baseball boogie-esque.
Yeah, it is. It is very, very 1970s. But yeah, no, I still have trouble seeing Brady going to the Chargers, just because why is he going to want to play in front of 30,000 of another team's fans? It just doesn't make sense.
I hope he doesn't do it for his sake. Peyton Manning, I think, is that exception to the rule when you're at that age, going somewhere else and it works.
Right. But I just don't feel that the Chargers are that big. It's because there's a guy on WEEI up in Boston who is one of the few non-reactionary talk radio hosts, a guy named Dale Arnold, who said that he'd been talking to people and as many as 11 teams were interested in Brady. And the team that is pushing the hardest apparently is the Redskins. But there is zero chance that Brady's going to want to play for that disaster of a franchise.
Oh, my God.
Why would he want to spend time with Snyder in that complete and utter mess for 2 years? There are other teams that are after him, apparently the Giants and the Jets, which would make Manish Mehta in the New York Post basically pass out because he wouldn't know what to do if Brady was in his town.
Well, it's the same reason why nobody ever wants to play for Dolan in the Knicks.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. But I mean, I guess the Giants thing is with Joe Judge going there, and I guess Miami's another one they're talking about with Bryant Flores down there. But I still think Brady's coming back. Big Papi today said that Brady was coming back on a 2-year deal, and God knows I am not going against Big Papi. So.
You can't not love David Ortiz. It's like any player named Mookie.
Yes, well, we're going to trade ours, I think, somewhere to the West Coast. But
you think that's happening for sure?
I mean, it's seeming more and more common every day. The weird thing to me is that it appears more likely to be San Diego than the Dodgers. But I think that's likely to happen. If it's not going to happen, he may play this season and they trade him next year. But yeah, I think he's out, which is ridiculous. He's the best prospect we've had make it to the majors in probably since Nomar, honestly. And we're going to just let him go for minor leaguers and get rid of David Price's contract. So,
as a Jays fan, in the brief time we had him, I knew that was going to bust. When the bright lights are on, David Price does not show up. No,
and I mean, the last time we made a trade with the Dodgers, though, that worked out pretty well for us. So who knows? But I just don't trade Mookie. By the way, I don't know if you've seen, there is actually Ortiz is going to be in a Hyundai commercial for the Super Bowl.
No, I did not see that. That is awesome.
Yeah, so there's a Hyundai commercial where it's 3 Boston actors, Chris Evans, Rachel Dratch, and John Krasinski, talking about Hyundai's Smart Pack. So the car packs itself. You just press a button and the car will pack itself and unpack itself, and Big Papi makes a cameo.
Nice.
And John Krasinski says, "I'm sorry, your bigness."
Well,
so,
my wife and folks. Oh, that's great. My wife and I at this point, because her Pats aren't in, and she's a very casual football fan. So for her, it's about the commercials and the halftime show at this point.
Right, and all Patriots fans are for Jimmy G. So,
who are you cheering for, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, the Niners, of course.
Yeah. For me, it's Kansas City. When I've got no dog in the fight, it's what fan base wants it the most.
I have. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a bitter Pats fan about this. I'm sure Mahomes is going to win multiple Super Bowls by the time he's done. I have nothing against Mahomes. I have nothing against that team. I have nothing against Andy Reid. Just Jimmy G he's the Patriots guy. He was supposed to be taking over for Brady, and then he ended up with the team that we all expected Brady was going to leave to go to.
Right.
And so just that's the reasoning more than anything else. Plus, it'd be kind of funny for Jimmy G to win a Super Bowl for the coach who was the offensive coordinator that gave up the 28-3 lead for the Falcons, and that Super Bowl to the Patriots.
There you go. That's beer number 6. I've got the Chiefs. You've got the Niners.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and I've just jinxed everything there. I know what I've done because I cannot win a bet against you. I just cannot.
Oh, Boston Sports has been on a bit of a run. So, anyway, but before we move on, and I know we've briefly touched on the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and we're going to get to basketball, presuming at Kobe.
Yes.
There's this one other passing I want to talk about this week, because we actually had 3 sports passings, one who were not someone's ever getting the Hall of Fame for anything, probably Michael Andretti.
Mm-hmm.
The race car driver died of cancer at 57 today.
Terrible age to die at.
Yeah. The nephew of Mario Andretti.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very good racer. He's not gonna make any of the motorsports Hall of Fames, I can't imagine. But it's kind of sucks. All of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I remember Kimmy's not that old, and then he's gone. And I mean, his last race in NASCAR, I think, was 2010. So he's been out for a little bit, but Godspeed, Mr. Andretti.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one for Pro Football is Chris Doleman.
Yes.
Also died of cancer, brain cancer. I actually, right before you called, was watching his Hall of Fame speech.
Oh, okay.
He was
2012, right?
Like, I know that. I'm sorry?
2012, right?
Yeah, 2012. Not that long ago.
Yeah.
8 years. He was 50 at the time. He just seemed so alive and with it and everything. And then I saw something a couple days ago where David Baker was doing something to Hall of Fame and giving an award to him, and he was in a wheelchair and couldn't focus his eyes and all sorts of stuff. And couldn't talk. It was just one of those things, like, unless you're on top of it, you don't necessarily feel it. But Doleman was an incredible player, particularly for the Vikings, also for the Falcons, but I always think of him as Viking first. Those teams with John Randall and Jack Del Rio and all those guys. And it just sucks that he's gone so soon. And this has nothing to do with CTE, nothing else. It's just luck of the draw.
Right.
But Godspeed to a really, really, really great football player.
Yeah, and that's the shitty thing. Cancer doesn't care who you are, how old you are, what your race is, what your age is, what your background is, what country you are. And yeah, R.I.P. Chris Doleman, a phenomenal player. Never got to see him live.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's tough. And I guess that sort of segues into Kobe. Kobe Bryant sadly passed away, age 41. I didn't think it would hit. I was just going to say, because this is like the second death of the last 5 years that I didn't think would hit me this hard. The last one being David Bowie. And it wasn't even, I'm not a Lakers fan. I wasn't even necessarily a Kobe fan. I mean, during all that spat, I was Team Shaq.
Right.
But it hit me. It hit me really hard.
It was easier to be Team Shaq back then because Shaq, we all knew, is the older guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was the unstoppable force. Kobe had the, let's call it, legal issues in Colorado. So it was just easier to be a Shaq guy. Kobe seemed like a me first shooter for a while, and he completely developed from 2002, 2003 when that thing broke up,
right,
to when he became champion again in 2009, 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he completely developed, became almost a statesman and mentor. I mean, you could see the number of players who are changing their numbers in the NBA. Like guys you wouldn't suspect are out. Like I mean, right now, employee number 8 for the Celtics is Kemba Walker, and Kemba is thinking about changing his number in honor of Kobe. Can you imagine a Celtic changing their number in honor of a Laker?
No, there's something to that. And I was talking to a really good friend of mine, Dave Johnson. I'll give a quick shout out to him. Like during all of this, and we talked, him and I talked like God in so many bars where this whole website began anyway, where I always sort of felt that like later on after that the whole Kobe Shaq split essentially happened not because of what this disagreement or that disagreement. It was just that Kobe was the hardest working man in basketball, and he looks at Shaq, this God's gift of a creation, not working to make himself the best player he could. And that's honestly what I think happened.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the problems that Bird had with McHale back with the Celtics. Bird used to ride McHale like anything because Bird worked his ass off and got everything, and he just felt McHale could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
And I was that and Bird's back and McHale breaking his foot in the 87 playoffs are kind of what did those Celtics teams in. but there's a huge personality conflict that went on for years with those teams. So it's not like it's unprecedented with great teams for that to happen.
Right.
But yeah, I completely understand that, because Kobe, I've said this before, Kobe was one of the greatest athletes this country's ever produced. Had he decided to play soccer, he would have been the greatest soccer player in American history.
What's your competition, Freddie Adu?
Oh, come on, man.
Sorry, it was there. It was there. I ran with it.
I mean, honestly, the competition is the guy right now, Christy Pulisic, is probably the greatest player that the United States has ever produced. I mean, unless you go into Len Donovan, Clint Dempsey, or maybe some of the old folks. John Harkes is pretty good. But, like, Kobe grew up in Italy playing soccer first, basketball second, and I don't know if you ever saw him. He did a few charity soccer games.
I did, actually. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Mm.
So it's amazing. It's one of those, you said the deaths that shocked you. Kobe shocked me. I found out about it. My buddies and I are one of the few people who use Google Hangouts. So we've had this thing going for years, and they told me over that, and I was like, oh my God. I said that to my wife, and my wife was even like, are you kidding? Because we were both 41, so we're the exact same age as Kobe.
Yeah.
And this is one of those deaths that hit me. I mean, Bowie hit me. Honestly, the one that hit me too, out of nowhere was Tom Petty. Because the song at my wedding was "Wildflowers." That was our first dance. We have our wedding photo framed with the words "The Wildflowers" on it downstairs.
Okay. Nice.
But up with. But yeah, I mean, it's on that level. It's mortality. The other thing that comes to me actually is when, a long time ago, because I'm, I believe, 13 days older than her, when Aaliyah died way back in 2001 at the age of 22.
Oh wow! Okay,
that one hit me. That one hit me at mortality too. Yeah, she'd be 41 this month. Me, Aaliyah, and Joe Thornton. I'll turn 41 this month. Yeah, that
the trio you didn't know you needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we just need one more, and we're the new Beatles. Yeah, it's just another one of those, like, oh my God, this is crazy, and also reminded me, be careful what aircraft you get on. So.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something to that, and R.I.P. Kobe. Actually, sort of like going back to that, just like how we sort of like transcended everything. Going back to my wife, she's a casual sports fan, and I think sort of like being married to someone who's a sort of a casual fan reminds you of like how people really transcend.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to moving to Barbados, Pauline and I, we were living in Western Canada. And we went back to Ontario, which is where I grew up, to visit my family. And Kobe's last game in Canada, she wanted to go. And I was like, okay, I'd love to do that, but it's a shit ton of money. Raptors tickets are expensive. And she said, no, we're doing it. And we did. And we went to go see Kobe's last game in Canada. I guess his last international game.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and for like 2 years prior to that, I had season tickets to the Raptors, and for whatever reason, I just didn't get to go see him play. So, and also we went to go see an exhibition game, Lakers, Clippers in Vegas, and then he didn't play. So this was the first and only time, obviously, that I ever got to see him play. So that was the type of player that he was, that he transcended a casual fan. So when you say the word Kobe, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the few one word celebrities out there, one name celebrities.
Yeah, and
it takes a lot to get to that level.
Yeah, and what he would have done in the second half of his life, I'm sure would have been incredible, because that work ethic.
Well, I mean, he won an Oscar last year.
Yes, he did. And what else would he have accomplished? And I know that when I'm working on trying to increase the site traffic and everything I do for NotInHallOfFame.com, I just remember the work ethic of him. What more can I do?
Mm-hmm.
And, that's part of it. It's one of those guys, I did not think it would hit me this hard. Like other people have died, I knew it was going to hit me. I'm a big wrestling fan, so when Roddy Piper died, it hit me hard. But with Kobe and David Bowie, again, I'll just go back to that. It hit me really hard. I did not realize how much it was going to hit me. But then I didn't expect him to die. Nobody did.
No, I mean that was crazy shock. I mean that's the thing about Bowie. Bowie was at least his late 60s. Kobe was 41. I mean,
and 3 teenagers died on that, and in some weird way, it's not so much that I weep for Kobe. Kobe lived one hell of a life, but his daughter and the 2 other teens didn't get to.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part absolutely sucks.
Yeah, and I don't mean to sound cold. Just he had an incredible life, and he got to do so much stuff, and he affected so many people. And just when kids die, and for all of those people on social media, like, and you and I were both super active on that, just to sort of like point out some of the other controversial shit he did in Colorado right away before knowing all this stuff. It's my show. Fuck you. You know. You know, just maybe just wait a little bit before you sort of like want to point out some stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm at a loss for words. I really am. And I didn't think that I would be, because this is a few days after, and I'm still stuck on this.
Yeah, it's still pretty surreal. And this is a minor consideration in this whole thing, but we are shaping up to have the greatest and professional basketball Hall of Fame class ever coming up here, and it's still going to be. I mean, they've already said Kobe's going to get inducted, but nobody doubted Kobe was getting inducted anyway. So, I mean, they moved it from 5 years to 3 years a few years ago,
just for this purpose. And let's be honest, it was for this purpose. Because they're hemorrhaging money. They're working on building a new facility, and this was a big part of it. Now this indirectly sort of helps them, and so like when they say, "Oh yeah, no, we're gonna induct Kobe like right away without sort of consideration," yeah, well you were anyway. Come on,
right? And the other people up, just in case people don't know, is Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan. So with Kobe, we're talking 3 of the, at worst, 25 best players of all time. I'd say actually probably better than that, but given anyone's listing, it's 25th. I mean, and also Chris Bosh is up this year.
Bosh,
who's almost an afterthought.
Actually, for Chris Bosh's sake, I kind of hope they sort of like give him a year to sort of wait on that.
Because next year, the only person eligible who's going to get in first time is Paul Pierce. And Paul Pierce and Bosh going in together and letting Garnett, Kobe, and Duncan go together seems to make a little more sense.
Yeah. And they have the wild card in Chris Webber, who should have gotten in already, but I'll go back to some of the other theories here. He should have gotten in a few years ago. They're sort of discounting whatever he did in college because, he took a bribe, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, the NCAA is corrupt.
And that timeout did not help.
No, it didn't, but if you want to go by influence and everything else, yeah, he had the timeout. More people remember the timeout than the team that actually beat him.
No, agreed. Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when the ESPN had still the greatest sports highlights of all time, which was the Images of the Century Aerosmith Dream On thing, the only thing they had for that basketball game was Webber turning and calling the timeout. So, yeah.
And he's better than that, and he is a Hall of Famer. He earns it, in my eyes, totally. Having said that, I don't want him in this year. I don't even know that if I'm Chris Bosh, I want to go in this year.
Yeah, I almost agree with you on that.
You think he does?
Yeah, I think. I think anybody wants to get in the Hall of Fame as soon as they possibly can. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
But if he got in next year instead, I don't necessarily think he would be so disappointed because he'd be completely overshadowed by Duncan Garnett and the memorial to Bryant.
And so. I was talking to my friend back in Toronto, and I felt bad because I almost feel bad for Tim Duncan because to me, Duncan is actually a better overall player than Bryant is.
You can certainly make that argument.
Yeah, and I have, and I will. In the last not in Hall of Fame basketball list, Duncan was number 1 over Bryant, and I can go to the grave thinking that he was a better overall player, not by much.
No, I mean you're choosing between player number 5 and player number 7 in NBA history. Like,
right.
This is not a slight of one on the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Duncan's the type of guy though too. It's not like he ever wanted a lot of attention. Garnett's a different story, but he was going to be number 3 no matter what.
Yeah,
and it's
agreed.
still.
I mean, Garnett is like probably a 10 to 20 player all time in there, but he's not a top 10 player. Again, that's not a slight to him at all. But he's just a half step below those guys.
Which he might even tell you. He might be the first person to say that. It's I would imagine, and again I don't know for sure, but I mentioned this class. It's got to be sort of like a Kobe tribute. How can it not be?
Right. Yeah, and those other 2 guys are now sort of along for the ride. It kind of, again, this is a minor consideration in the overall tragedy that is a helicopter crash.
Right.
But it would have been cool for all 3 of them to be there. Well, I mean, for other reasons, all 3 of them to be there. But now it's going to be the who's not there plus the other 2 guys. So.
Exactly. So, like, selfishly, sort of somebody who follows the Hall of Fame stuff, and you can sort of identify with that. I don't know, Duncan was somebody that he's one of my favorite players only because he just wanted to play basketball, and that was it. And that's not a terrible, is that a terrible thing? Is that a great thing? I don't know. It's just that he was this guy that he was all about that team first. Kobe became that guy, but he wasn't. Initially, that wasn't who he was, but he became that person. He became that legend. When he did that commercial, and I'm blanking for who it was, with I think Richard Branson was in that, where he said like, okay, are you actually giving your best on everything? And it's like, yeah, but I went to the moon or whatever he said.
Mm-hmm.
And when Kobe said, yeah, but can you do better? When Kobe says it, I believe it, because nobody wanted to win more and do better than him.
Right.
Other than Michael Jordan. I can't think of anyone, in basketball anyway, that sort of fits that.
Yeah, I remember towards the end of Kobe's career, and I feel the same thing about Brady, too. They just loved their sport so much and were so into it and so intense about it. I was having trouble understanding what they were going to do when they couldn't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And he seemed to have found a transition out. And that whole clip with him and his daughter just a few weeks before that was making the rounds. And there was I don't know if you saw that interview with him, and I think it was Jimmy Kimmel.
I did, yeah.
Where he was on there and said, people were like, oh, you got to have a son in order to carry on your name. And his daughter would say, hey, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
And just how proud he was and how great she was going to be and everything. And she's gone too. And 2 of her friends and a coach. And that helicopter pilot apparently was also the pilot for
Kawhi.
Like a bunch of people out there,
Yeah,
but Kawhi, yeah.
And
so
and that's also
that guy had thousands and thousands and thousands of hours in the air.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and
yeah, it's just the whole thing sucks.
And that's almost like why I respect so much of Kobe, because even he's saying this. Oh yeah, there's some people ready for who could play in the NBA now who are in the WNBA. He knows they're not, but he wants to sort of empower his daughter.
Right.
And I know that's going to sound sexist, but come on, they're not. Deladon, like great player, and there's a lot of great players in the WNBA. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the same league. It can't be the same league, and they're not ready. But he's the type of guy that he's going to say that to try and empower his daughter, and
Right.
that was incredible.
But who knows? Who knows? Someone like her with Kobe's backing and star power and everything else, could that do something for the league? And the answer is we're never going to know.
Yeah.
I mean, Kobe seemed to almost be transitioning, and I think Bill Simmons said this, when at some point Jack Nicholson is no longer going to be able to go to Lakers games. And those seats, those really important seats, who's going to be taking him? Who's the biggest star to take him? And a lot of people are feeling back those were Kobe seats.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's the next guy to have the star power to have those seats and be the face of the fans in the franchise. So this is going to sound sacrilegious, I'm about to say, but given the fact that LeBron and Anthony Davis and that team is really going to be good, this would be the least upset I would be for the Lakers to win the championship and tie the Celtics in overall championships.
Well, how can anyone who's nonpartisan not cheer for the Lakers?
Right.
That's who I'm cheering for, unless my Raptors are against them. And I don't see Toronto going.
I mean, the idea of Milwaukee, that team is really good. Milwaukee needs a championship for that team. It would be nice to see a team like Milwaukee win one. But if it's Lakers against, I don't know, we'll just pick the 76ers. I mean, it'd be hard for me not to root for Lakers. I am a diehard Celtics fan. So
wasn't the last time Lakers and Sixers sort of like, oh, we're in the finals? Was that the time where Destiny's Child was booed?
That I don't remember. I don't specifically remember Destiny's Child being booed.
You know what? I'm right. You know, they were. That was when they were booed because they played a halftime show. That was before Beyonce was the Beyonce we know now. The one half of sort of like the American royal couple. It's not a shot in the United States, so I hope nobody thinks that because I'm Canadian, blah, blah, blah. But I remember this. Yeah, it was Kelly had the whole Lakers uniform on. Beyonce had half Lakers, half Sixers. And I remember this sad sack picture of the person I always called the other Destiny's Child. Remember? And she was all in Sixers garb. Michelle, yeah. Was it Michelle?
Michelle Williams.
Yeah, Michelle Williams, yeah.
Michelle Williams of Masked Singer fame.
I don't watch that show. Is it okay? Yeah.
No, she finished sixth in this season's Masked Singer. So, as the butterfly, I believe.
As the butterfly.
But, yes. So Wayne Brady won the whole thing. In case you're scoring at home.
No, I had no idea.
And the next season starts right after the Super Bowl.
Oh,
so have that going. They have even more contestants. They had 12 the first year, 16 the second year, and now 18 year three. So by the time this goes, it's just going to be like an NCAA tournament with playing games.
Yeah, I'll give a spoiler. I'm the alcoholic.
Good to know.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, R.I.P. Kobe. The finalists are going to come out, I think, on Valentine's Day for the Basketball Hall of Fame. Clearly, there goes three guys. I think Bosch will be a finalist. The only other person who's eligible this year for the first time I can see ever really getting consideration is Elton Brand.
Yeah.
But he's an eventual. He's not a this year or next year or the year after. Yeah, it just stinks. There's
actually one thing I sort of want to touch on before we go. And I thought about it more after you sort of said that on social media. Eli Manning, actually not just social media, but on this show too, I think, where you had him as the number 7 or 8 guy in his era. And the more I thought about it, it's like, that's the very thing that people are going to think of and keep him out for quite a while. Because when you look at Eli Manning, actually, it reminds me, there's another thing I want to ask you about before we go. Is Eli ever going to be considered the top 5 guys of any finals group? And I don't see it.
It depends who he's up against and how many East Coast writers are in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's going to be eligible in, it's 2020 this year, so he'll be eligible in 2025. I mean, the only people we know who are going to be up against him as first-timers so far is Keachley, right? Greg Olson may be retiring. Jason Witten may be retiring.
Mm-hmm. And I put them both over him.
I mean, Witten's a first-ballot Hall of Famer. Like, he's fourth all-time in catches or something. Like, regardless of how bad he is as a commentator, Jason Witten's a first-ballot Hall of Famer. Olsen is going to be...
He's not as bad as Troy Aikman. I just had to throw that out. I think Troy Aikman's the worst commentator ever.
Have you heard of Dan Fouts?
Okay, fair enough.
Or Booker McFarland, for that matter. Dan Fouts has needed both glasses and a hearing aid for approximately 20 years. Every time Dan Fouts calls a Patriots game, you're like, oh my God, how? We're too good for this matchup. But anyway, it's going to be interesting. Has there been anyone else major who's retired that I'm missing off the top of my head?
Well, there could be. Thus far, no, but there could be.
I mean, there certainly could be. We still got time.
Yeah.
I mean, if Kansas City wins the Super Bowl, would you be shocked to see Terrell Suggs retire? No,
not at all.
So I mean, and then he's definitely a candidate for first ballot. So as much as I hate him.
But the other thing too, though, because if you look at all this other group too of just his position, so let's say hypothetically in the next 3 years, Brady's done, Breeze is done,
Roethlisberger's done,
right? Rivers
is going to be done too. Yeah, all four of those guys will be done.
Right. So Manning's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, despite what some writers in New York have said. He's not.
And sorry, throw one more in there. Rodgers may be done in the next 3 years.
That's another one.
I don't know how much longer he really wants to play. He's 36 already. It seems like he started late because he was behind Favre.
Oh my God, is he 36?
He's 36 already.
Oh, okay.
So it's entirely possible that he's done the next 3 years, depending on how badly he's been beaten up. And if Packers ever win another Super Bowl, I think he walks away.
Mm-hmm. So Eli's not getting in right away. He's not going to get in first or second. So then any one of these other guys are going to come up. How the hell do you go in that room and say Eli's better than any one of those five guys we just talked about? You can't. And it doesn't mean you can't put two quarterbacks in. You certainly can.
Well, you can make the argument with Eli and Rivers. I'll give you that argument. Mm-hmm. But the other four is a definite no.
Yeah. Who do you think was better, Eli or Phillip Rivers?
I think Phillip Rivers was better.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But if you're just looking at accolades and everything else, Eli's got the nod. Mm-hmm. Not that that's fair, but if you're in a room, you're comparing overall playoffs and everything else. I mean, Rivers never made a Super Bowl. He should have made 2000 and I can't remember which one it was that Troy Brown knocked it out of the hands of the guy who intercepted Brady. Yeah. I think that was 2004. It was 3 or 4. I can't remember. I think it was 4. But he should have made the Super Bowl that year. But other than that, he never made it there. Part of his problem was that he was in the conference with Tom Brady, and Eli wasn't. Of course, Eli beat Brady in the Super Bowl twice. I think one of the things that has been weird about Eli's candidacy is the comparisons with, oh my God, I blank out the Raiders QB. It's just completely blank out of my head.
Oh, Plunkett.
Jim Plunkett, thank you. The comparisons with Plunkett has been weird. Because Plunkett was never once a Pro Bowler. 0 Pro Bowls. Like, the argument that if Eli's going to get in, then Plunkett needs to get in. Okay. I know Plunkett's won 2 and he has 1 Super Bowl MVP, but that's pretty much it. Like, even against his contemporaries, it's not that great. And I understand that he's a Raider, and Raiders fans always feel put out and everything. Not as bad as Broncos fans, but pretty close. Mm-hmm. But the two of them being linked is silly to me. I think Eli has a better shot at getting in. Although,
I
fuck
agree.
it, all he needs is just give a
1,000%.
seniors ballot and he's in. So.
Now, the last thing I sort of want to ask you that sort of came up, was it yesterday or today? I believe yesterday. Neon Deion Sanders said that there's just too many players in.
Yeah.
And some people have said that that's a shot at Eli. Whether that is or not, I'm not sure. I totally disagree with him on that. What's your take on that?
Well, let's just go back to the last Hall of Fame, okay? The last class that was in. So taking a look at that, we have Ed Reed. Is he a weak Hall of Famer?
Yep.
Tony Gonzalez a weak Hall of Famer?
Not at all.
Champ Bailey a weak Hall of Famer?
Nope.
All right, so that's 3 first ballots. We don't have any question. Kevin Mawai got in on his 3rd ballot. Now, we thought someone else should get in over him, but is any doubt Kevin Mawai belongs to the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Totally love Kevin Mawai in that Hall of Fame.
100%. And that leaves Ty Law. And now Law is the first player of those Patriots defense to get in, and we all know that Deion did not mean Ty Law when he was getting in because he was super excited for Law when he got in.
Mm-hmm.
So if those are the 5 guys who just got in, and again, Johnny Robinson is way overdue, and the other 2 players were the other 2 people were Gil Brandt and Pat Doleman, an owner and the architect of the Dallas teams. Who's the weak link?
No, there is none, and I wonder where that's coming from. And if he is taking a shot at Eli, which A, why, and B, is it just a case of sometimes older, crustier Hall of Famers, usually they're in baseball, Joe Morgan, I'm looking at you, just not wanting to dilute, in their opinion, this club that they belong to?
I guess. I don't know. I mean, I think he's wrong. I mean, there are just so many good players, particularly in the seniors category. Like I said, those 30 guys who weren't on the ballot last year and still haven't gotten in, most of those guys have a pretty good argument. Gradishar, we've already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Coryell, we all think is going to be in. Roger Craig was one of our favorites to get in. Kuchenberg should have been in back in 2003 or 4, whenever he was up. I mean, I guess some of these other folks. Elsie Greenwood is someone who I always presume is getting in. Ken Anderson's probably got the best argument of any quarterback. I mean, you just going back. There aren't bad people waiting. And I mean, again, going back to 2008, that class is Brian Dawkins, Ray Lewis, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Brian Urlacher. Who doesn't belong there? Like, and Jerry Kramer's finally in that class. Like, there's no basis for what he's saying. I understand maybe he's old and crotchety and whatever, and that they think they're like too many people. But I'd imagine there are probably a lot of baseball Hall of Famers. I bet Joe Morgan privately is grumbling about the number of people who've been getting in over the last decade or so, since 2013.
Him, Rolly Fingers is another one.
Yeah, Rolly Fingers is probably another one. But, like, are they going to be upset when Louis Tiant gets in 2 years? Probably not. So, I think that it may just be reactionary. He just probably has a visceral hate of the Giants and the whole talk that Eli is just automatically getting in, which I don't understand. There are a lot of writers who's like, he's a first ballot guy.
I've read that too. It's like, are we watching the same quarterback? And it's not a shot so much at Eli. Like, if you're 3/4 of the league's fan base, you would rather have had Eli as your quarterback than who you had. But 3/4 is not Hall of Famer.
That is also true.
Yeah.
He and Joe Flacco were the experts of throwing a duck up in the air that hung for a long time and caused the defensive back to run in the wide receiver pass interference. Like that was his and Joe Flacco's like greatest plays. Just throw a ball that's way too high, hangs up way too long, ends up shorter than it should, and the defensive back ends up tackling the wide receiver because he figures the ball is supposed to have come and it lands like a second and a half later. I'm
blanking. Flacco, was he Super Bowl MVP?
I believe he was.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So I know it was Ray Lewis on the first one. I can't remember on the second. I'm blanking there. But that one at least
I think it was Flacco.
Yeah, because that one at least, the Ravens scored more than 30 points, unlike the Giants. In both of those.
Yeah, no, he did win Super Bowl MVP, although if the 49ers had won the Super Bowl MVP, would be whoever blew out the lights in that Super Bowl would change momentum.
Colin Kaepernick. I had a long discussion about him today.
Yeah, imagine how different NFL would be if the 49ers had won that Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. And then Colin Kaepernick went through the whole kneeling thing. Imagine how different the whole narrative would be.
Here's the butterfly effect. If Colin Kaepernick doesn't meet his current girlfriend, and I'll maintain that, that's the one who brought him into activism.
Very possible, but I mean, you can't tell me that any of the quarterbacks that the Denver Broncos have employed over the last 2 years are better than Colin Kaepernick.
No, I cannot, and I wouldn't even try. I will say this. If I was an NFL GM, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. Right now I wouldn't. 2 years ago, I would have a different answer. This year, no, forget it.
I also feel like the coaches who are brave enough to take Colin Kaepernick on already were set at quarterback. Like, Belichick would take Colin Kaepernick on, but
totally.
Why does he need him with Brady? Like, I feel that the Saints could have taken Kaepernick on and been okay, and things would have been okay, but why did they need him with Breeze?
Well, but that's funny you say that, because there's two teams that have a quarterback free agent, both of whom are over 40, and both of whom could retire. And as a
Brady's
Saints fan,
retiring.
Well, I don't think so either, but let's just say that they could. As a Saints fan, right now I'm thinking, do I want Kaepernick? And it's not so much about his play anymore, so much as it's this colossal distraction to everything else. And whether you, and whether you want to say it or not, it is.
But to be fair to the Saints, if Breeze retired tomorrow, they would just sign Teddy Bridgewater in a second. Yeah, because Bridgewater showed he could run that team.
Yeah, Bridgewater, and then you've got the Swiss Army knife and Hill with Taysom Hill.
Well, that's the other thing. Maybe they just give Hill the job, and let's say both those guys retire. Because one of the things I've seen is that Brady's going someplace else, and Teddy Bridgewater is the likely replacement in New England.
Really?
If not, it's Bridgewater and Andy Dalton are the two names I've seen. And if your choices are Andy Dalton or Tom Brady, you take. I don't care how many more $1 million you need to pay to Tom Brady to get him to come. You pay that extra $1 million. You don't have Andy Dalton as your QB.
And it's not a shot at Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton had a fine season, and he got a shit end of a stick when he was benched.
They went for the first pick. They were terrible. Went for the first pick. That's not his fault.
No, not at all.
But Bridgewater would be an interesting change of pace, because I think Belichick also wants to participate in this QB revolution thing. Because the Patriots were seriously considering drafting Lamar Jackson had it looked like Brady was leaving. Like, there's all sorts of stuff coming up to that. There was all sorts of talk about the Patriots drafting Lamar Jackson, and then they traded out of the pick so that the Ravens could draft him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they would. If Brady's gone, it would surprise me if it were Bridgewater showing up. No, I don't think it would.
Yeah, that's the thing with quarterbacks. It'll swing the other way. There's so many of these running quarterbacks who once they get injured a couple times and things just fall apart so quickly.
Yeah. And, well, I think Mahomes is better prepared in case his legs ever went than Lamar Jackson is. Lamar Jackson is not a complete quarterback yet. Mahomes is.
Yeah, and that's not a shot at Lamar at all. Lamar is
not a shot at Lamar.
Yeah, like I love watching him play at Louisville. Like I was sort of hoping, just selfishly as an NFL fan, that he was going to get that starting job way before he did.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so like that was one thing I sort of wanted to end that on with Neon Deion, because I don't even know if he believes what he said, whether so much as that was just when people are asking him about Eli. And I don't even know if that's the case and what his context was. I'm not positive.
Yeah, I saw the clip, but I didn't see the context either, so I'm not exactly sure. Sorry, before we go, I have one other thing I just wanted to bring up that popped up this week. back to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the induction.
Mm-hmm.
Remember you said who was going to induct Whitney Houston? You thought Clive Davis? Well, a new person has thrown their hat into the ring and said that everyone thinks it should be her inducting Whitney Houston.
Who's that?
And that we forgot Whitney Houston's cousin, Dionne Warwick.
Ooh, I'd like that. Actually, I suggested Bobby Brown.
Well, you said Bobby Brown first, and then like it can't be Bobby Brown, it's going to be, and you said Clive Davis.
Yeah.
If he was still alive.
Yeah.
But Dionne Warwick, I think, would be a good person for that. I just want to throw that out there. She said everybody thinks it should be her. I have no idea if there's a groundswell of support behind Dionne Warwick. But that makes a lot more sense than Bobby Brown. Everyone would be a lot more comfortable with that than having Bobby Brown do the induction. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I think so too. Although sometimes they just go with sort of like the modern equivalent, and I'm trying to think who that is off the top of my head. Like, who's the modern Whitney Houston? I don't even know. Adele?
Who?
Adele.
Maybe. But it'd be a little weird to have a young British singer, white lady.
Well, okay, yeah, but if we take sort of race and nationality out of it, when it comes to just there's only a handful of people who can just sort of stand on a stage without needing any kind of like background dancers, light show and shit like that commanded something. Adele, and I'm not even an Adele fan. I musically, it's just not my cup of tea, and it's not a shot at her. I just don't identify with it. But if she's on stage somewhere, I'm watching and I'm transfixed with her. I don't need a bunch of other shit around me to sort of just like watch her belt out of tune. Whitney was that type of person too. And that's maybe why I sort of thought of that. I mean, you're right. There's not a whole lot of like, you think of Whitney, you think of Adele, but I kind of do. For that reason.
I still think Warwick is a better choice, but...
Oh, it is. It is, but whether that's something they're looking for, because they still have to sell tickets.
True.
Unless Dionne sort of like plugs her psychic friends.
I was going to say, I mean, she knows everybody's coming already, so.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, all right. So next week we're going to be doing a postmortem on the Pro Football Hall, right?
We are. And I will lose again because I always lose. I'll be down in debt 6 beers because I suck.
Yeah. Poor Tony Baselli. He doesn't share the shot now.
Yeah, I've jinxed Tony Baselli and the whole Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh.
Womp.
Anyway, hey, at least get you up to an even 6-pack. So.
There's that, but we're going to be going out, so it's going to be one of those inflated prices at some fancy lounge you take me to in Chicago.
Yes, I'm, wherever I take you to, there's one thing I will guarantee you have to do.
Deep dish pizza?
You have to have it. No, if whatever bar we go to, you have to have the unofficial Chicago drink, which is one of the most vile liquids on the surface of the earth. It's the second worst thing that called a drink I've ever had. It's called Malort.
What?
So you have to have some. So you have to have some Malort while you're here.
A bite? What's that?
It is. Malort. It's something that is you would presume you use to clean axle grease off. But Malort is the unofficial shot here in Chicago. It is a Swedish, what do I want to call it? It's a Swedish wormwood drink. And it is terrible.
God damn.
But if you're in Chicago, you have to have it. It's like when I was in Budapest, they made me drink, God, what's the bastard drink? 100? Palinkovats? No. Oh, yeah, no, it is Palinkovats. So they made me drink Palinkovats, which is the third worst alcohol I've ever had in my entire life. But when I was at the bar in Budapest, they're like, American, you must try this. The worst one, by the way, is the Serbian national drink, which is Unicum.
I've actually had that.
Yes, Unicum comes in a bottle that looks like a cartoon bomb, and that's an appropriate bottle for it. It is rough.
Okay, all right, I'll go that. And if I ever get ahead when we finally sort of like do this, There's a drink I don't even know what they call it in Winnipeg, which is the first time I've ever seen it. I saw a whole whack of people doing that, and I think it's disgusting. They would put tomato juice inside their beer.
Yeah, I've seen that before. It's not something I necessarily would endorse, but I've seen it before. So I've never had it myself, but I will take you up on that as well.
All right. Well, I'm gonna lose, so already know what. I guess we'll be talking like the Swedish Chef or whatever like that.
Malort. Go look it up.
I'm definitely gonna do that. Though every time I sort of like think of anything with that, I always try to picture that in a Michael Caine voice. I don't know why.
Oh, Malort?
No, just anything. It's just like Michael Caine doing the Swedish Chef. Borskajam, badam badiskadam, borskajam, badaboom, boy, boy, boy.
I still think that the before Kevin Spacey was canceled, his Wheel of Impressions where he did the Michael Caine voice after Jimmy Fallon failed at it was one of the single funniest things I've ever seen.
I haven't seen it, but that's my next YouTube.
Go look it up. It's basically like Jimmy fails at it, and he's like, "Do you do a Michael Caine?" And Kevin Spacey's like, "I do a Michael Caine." Michael Caine. I was talking to Michael Caine, and I asked him, "How did you manage to do so many pictures?" And he sat down and he said, "Well, I take a look at the script. I look at the first page. I look at the last page. If on both pages, I do the fucking movie."
Actually,
but Kevin Spacey does it much better than I do. Like I said, I've now done impressions 2 weeks in a row. It's getting bad.
My favorite I'll leave with my favorite Michael Caine quote, which was, "I've never seen Jaws 2, but I've seen the house that I bought, and it's fantastic."
my favorite Michael Caine quote was when they asked him why he changed his name and went to Hollywood, and he said, "Well, there was already a Maurice Micklewhite making quite a name for himself."
Nice.
So that is Michael Caine's actual name, Maurice Micklewhite.
Love it.
Oh.
Okay, so
anyway,
my impression for next week, if I remember and if you remember, it'll be Gordon Lightfoot singing Rihanna songs because I'm a Canadian now in Barbados.
Wow.
I
am a massive Gordon Lightfoot fan, so that'll be fun.
All right, so I'm gonna save it for next week, and you're gonna have to ask for it if you remember. And it's as awesome and as terrible as you think it is.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. But so the next week, the Pro Football Hall of Fame reaction and
whatever else comes up, because there'll be more
commercial reaction.
Yeah, Super Bowl reaction, which pretty much at Casa de Buck will involve was my wife entertained by commercials and by J-Lo.
Nothing more football than J-Lo. So.
Oh yeah, J-Lo.
Other than maybe Shakira.
J-Lo, Shakira, and the obligatory show up by Pitbull, which I know is going to happen.
Yeah, he probably going to show up. I'm waiting for the next Up With People concert myself.
All right, people under 30, please look that up. It's awesome, and you'll be happy. Actually, people under 50, I never saw that. I don't know if
Up With People existed to do anything other than Super Bowl halftimes. So.
Oh, that Up With People, my God! All right, you win the night. I'm going to end it at this.
All right, man. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, Evan.
All right, bye.
Bye.